Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to you, wherever you're joining us from. And thank you for joining us. And welcome to this inaugural Travel Retail Sustainability Week event. I'm Michael Barrett, Head of Events and Corporate Social Responsibility at TR Business. And it's my pleasure to host this keynote session alongside my colleague, Luke Barris-Hill. We have a great few days ahead planned for you with a number of extremely informative sessions. I want to start by thanking all this morning's session sponsors, Arianta International, Brown-Forman, Coty, and Mondelez International. Before I hand over to my colleague Luke to introduce our keynote session and speaker, I just want to provide a little context for this event. As you'll know, TR Business launched the Travel Retail Plastic Pledge and Travel Retail Sustainability Forum back in 2019 with the aim of driving the industry's investment and commitment to sustainable business practices. The objectives of the Travel Retail Plastic Pledge and Sustainability Forum initiatives are, and I quote the TRSF manifesto, to create a momentum and coordinate an industry-wide drive among all stakeholders to start implementing greener and more sustainable business policies and become more proactive in reducing plastic pollution and offsetting their plastic and carbon footprint. The how we plan to do this is through a series of physical meetings, online discussion forums, social media, and on trbusiness.com. Well, we know what happened to the physical meetings, so we've been focusing our efforts online with the website, social media groups, and virtual meetings. The first Travel Retail Sustainability Forum took place during the TR Business Travel Retail Marketplace event in September 2020, and the second edition 2 weeks ago during the Summit of the Americas virtual event, when we welcomed San Francisco Airport, Harding, Virgin Voyages, and Brown-Forman to an extremely insightful session. I'll let Luke share more about the editorial developments with regards to sustainability coverage on trbusiness.com and in our publications in a few moments. So throughout this week, we're going to hear a great deal about sustainability and sustainable business practices, both present and potential, within our industry, with some extremely interesting and thought-provoking contributions from a wide range of speakers and companies from a variety of perspectives. Later today, we have a session on sustainability in the beauty sector specifically at 2 p.m. UK time. Tomorrow morning, we'll hear about sustainable investments from industry leaders in the Lead by Example session. And then at 2 p.m, we'll have a very interesting discussion on packaging with a variety of contributions and perspectives on sustainable alternatives to single-use plastics in the Wrap It Up session. On Wednesday, the 9 a.m. UK time session will focus on how NGOs and social enterprises are addressing the plastic pollution problem with 3 different organizations, showcasing how they're working both through physical cleanups as well as education and advocacy to solve the global scourge of plastic pollution. Later in the day at 2 p.m. UK time, we'll be looking at how sustainability is driving new partnership models and the importance of partnerships to address sustainability more effectively. On Thursday, we'll start the live webinar slightly later in the day with the first live session at 2 p.m, which will focus on sustainability from the broader perspective, where we'll learn about how companies are addressing sustainability beyond plastics, namely through more environmentally friendly farming methods and cleaner energy use, a look at sustainability reporting, and a region-by-region overview on how sustainability is perceived and practiced. Our final live session of the week will take place at 4:30 p.m. UK time on Thursday, and this will provide an extremely detailed and quite varied approach to the all-important consumer perspective on sustainability within travel retail itself, with regards to plant-based products, and how businesses can reduce their use of plastics, and from the beauty category's perspective. And of course, each day from Monday to Thursday at 11:30 a.m. UK time, we'll be revealing the travel retail sustainability trailblazers and heroes in the 4 sustainability pitch sessions. You'll see how 25 judges from airports and retailers, our research partners Mindset, and our keynote speaker, David Katz, have evaluated these highly innovative and impressive investments into sustainability, which have been truly a delight to watch. It's been a real pleasure for all of us at TR Business liaising with our sustainability pitch partners and judges over the past few weeks and months on this initiative. So don't miss those sessions, 11:30 a.m. each day. And finally, don't miss the opportunity to network throughout the week. You have a number of sustainability networking hubs on the event platform where you can discover more about the various sustainable investments from a wide range of companies. You can also drop them a message on their hubs to request more information or schedule appointments with them to discuss sustainable business opportunities. You can also schedule appointments with each other through the Attendees tab here in the top right of the screen, in the top menu, or via the Schedule Appointment there just below the Looking to Network button on the main My Event page. If you have any questions about any aspect of the event, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us via our own virtual hub, the help desk, where our colleague Helen Chater will be able to answer your questions. You just need to click on the Join Virtual Meeting button at any time between 9 AM and 5 PM UK time, and you can chat with her there. Alternatively, you can leave us a message there also, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible with the Leave Us a Message button. Before I hand over to Luke, I'd also like to thank all of the companies who have made this event possible. As you know, there are no costs involved with either participating in the webinars or networking with any of the participants during this event. It was our owners, Nigel Hardy and Janice Hook's decision to make this event as widely available as possible and therefore free of charge to help drive sustainability within the industry. So without the support of our session and event sponsors, this event would not be possible. We'd like to take a few moments to acknowledge them and thank them for their support. So thank you very much to Altia, Arianta International, Beam Suntory, Brown Forman, Coty, Dufry, Fras, Guerlain, Join the Pipe, Chris Shop, Lego, L'Occitane en Provence, L'Oréal Travel Retail, Molton Brown, Mondelez International, Moroccan Oil, Nestle, Pure Essential, Ritter Sport, and Silent Pool Gin. Thank you to all of those companies. So for this session, please do send us your questions using the Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll do our best to put as many of your questions across during the session, and don't hesitate to leave any comments using the chat window. If any colleagues can't make it, or if you want to watch it again this session, you'll be able to find the session recording here on the event platform just by clicking on the session where you have just now. It will be available a short while after the end of this webinar. So without any further ado, I'll now hand over to my esteemed colleague, Luke Barris-Hill, who will introduce this morning's keynote session and our keynote speaker. Over to you, Luke.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Travel Retail Sustainability Week, the duty-free and travel retail industry's inaugural virtual event dedicated solely to sustainability. I'm Luke Barris-Hill, Acting Managing Editor here at TR Business. And like Michael, I'd like to express my gratitude to all of you joining us across the world for this pioneering programme. On behalf of TR Business, I'd like to take this opportunity to also pay a special thank you to Arianta International, Brown Forman, Coty, Mondelez for supporting this New Horizons keynote session, and indeed to all our premium partners supporting travel retail sustainability this week, their backing which is absolutely critical in order for this groundbreaking event to take place. Now, as Michael has outlined, this is a truly landmark occasion for duty-free and travel retail that addresses the challenges and opportunities around sustainability, what that represents to our industry and the broader global travel and tourism ecosystem, both through the eyes of businesses and indeed that all-important consumer. Now this week, we're delighted to bring you a jam-packed schedule of content-rich webinars, dovetailing with important business networking time so fundamental to the collective recovery of our industry. Now, as Michael mentions, we'd urge all of you to take full advantage of the Travel Retail Sustainability Week platform, and please make sure you stay connected with us over the coming days, including tuning in for those essential sustainability pitch sessions where we look forward to witnessing firsthand eco-friendly creativity at its very best. So it's perhaps fitting that we kick off our educational program this week with a keynote address from one of the leading authorities in the plastics recycling business. Environmentalist and entrepreneur David Katz is founder and CEO of Plastic Bank, a social enterprise committed to enacting powerful and long-lasting change for local communities and businesses by tackling the scourge of ocean-bound plastic through a plastic recycling network that at its very core empowers individuals in some of the world's most vulnerable coastal communities. In turn, Plastic Bank works with businesses such as SC Johnson, Henkel, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, Coty, and HelloFresh to champion a regenerative plastics economy mindset. As a motivator and educator on plastic's innate potential to realise social value creation across a circular economy, David's humanitarian work has been recognised by the United Nations Lighthouse Award for Planetary Health, the Sustainable Community Award at COP21, the Ernst & Young Lifetime Achievement Award, and others. David has also been featured in an award-winning documentary, as well as on the pages of Forbes, Time Magazine, Fast Company, Business Week, and National Geographic. Today, David is going to speak about the philosophy behind Plastic Bank, its achievements to date, moving from sustainability to regeneration, and the Ocean Blue strategy. Hopefully, by the end of this session, the organisers' mission will motivate some of you to join the growing social plastic movement that David will elucidate on in more detail. After his presentation, we'll be talking to David in a Q&A session, and please make sure you join the conversation by using the hashtag TR Sustainability Week across social media. And as Michael mentions, we welcome your questions. We're keen to put those to David. Separately, but entirely appropriate at this point, the TR Business is delighted to announce the launch of a dedicated sustainability section on trbusiness.com, where you can find the latest green developments taking place across our industry and further afield. Make sure you visit that section when you have a moment on our website. In addition, we'll be making further announcements in due course centered squarely on sustainability to bolster our award-winning editorial coverage online and within TR Business's interactive monthly e-zines. Stay tuned for more on those developments. Now, we're certainly in for an eye-opening session today, so without further ado, and at the risk of taking away some of his thunder, for which he is far better placed to describe the merits of his business and the change it is instigating globally, I'll hand over now to David Katz. David, the platform is yours.
Well, thank you, Luke, and thank you, Michael. It's a thrill to be here. It's early morning in Vancouver. I may or may not be wearing slippers, and I may or may not be wearing pajama bottoms. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for even leading a conversation around sustainability. Now, I've been introduced with some acclaim. I think it's been very nice that I've received some acknowledgement or reward, but I really am just a very simple guy out of the west coast of Canada. I joke and say, I'm just some dude out of Vancouver, and it's very true. I'd like to get to that at the end of this conversation because I want to really create the space for people to participate as well. In speaking of participation, I really do ask that everybody here as well ask questions, be in the consideration of a question that we can have a discussion with after. I find that wherever I've traveled in the world, wherever I've spoken in the world, those that ask questions really elicit a space for others to step into as well. It profoundly affects the conversation, and much of my talk at the end here will be based on questions. So please think of them, challenge me, ask them as you will. Lots to talk about. Now, sustainability. Let's be in that conversation on its own. Let's talk about the ocean. Let's talk about a regenerative business model. Now, I think that if I was to ask any of you personally, and I'm sure that if I asked if you think that someone should be doing something about what's occurring or unfolding in the ocean, I think that you'd all probably put your hand up. I don't think anyone would sit back and say, marine debris, I don't think that's occurring. I think we can all acknowledge that this tremendous flow of material entering the ocean is affecting all aspects of life. We are encountering the greatest rate of extinction ever. We are witnessing more than a garbage truck of plastic entering the ocean every minute. We've heard reports of by 2050 more plastic in the ocean by mass than fish. And we're all witnessing the death of marine animal around the world. I also want to pose and communicate that I truly believe that the very last thing that we should be doing as a species, as a humanity, is to clean the ocean. I know that that is a bit of a difficult discussion, but really, if I use an example of walking into a kitchen. Let me bring this back a little bit. If you were to walk into your kitchen and if water was spilling all over the floor and it was seeping into the walls and seeping into those parts of the foundation of your home and you were to panic, and in front of you was a bucket, a mop, or a plunger, what would you do first? Well, I think it should be clear that the first thing that we should do is turn off the tap. I mean, it truly would be futile to mop or plunge or scoop up the water if we're not turning the tap off first. And it really has to be the same thing for the ocean. Now, I'm a big fan of the ocean cleanup. I love the conversation that's occurred. Beach cleanups are what I think is more importantly communicated as habitat restoration must occur. There's so many things that must occur, but powerfully, we have to be turning the tap off. And it should be no surprise that most of the plastic that is entering the ocean, human plastic, is coming from areas of extreme poverty. Over 80% of the plastic that is entering our marine ecosystems are coming from areas that don't have clean water. They don't have sanitation. There's open defecation. Children suffer from stunted growth. They don't have enough nourishment in their home. Or the family itself doesn't have a floor, it's dirt. It definitely doesn't have a door. Children don't have clothes or shoes. No surprise then that without anything else to do with the material, communities either use the waterway, the canal, the river, or burn the material to dispose of it somehow. It's really those conditions that have led me to create an organization called Plastic Bank. We've been acknowledged now as a true root cause solution to turn the tap of plastic off. We're best expressed as a global chain of stores for the poor. A store where everything is available to be purchased using plastic, what was garbage, by mass as payment. I'm most proud that we offer school tuition and medical insurance and Wi-Fi and cooking fuel, cell phone minutes, clean water, and everything else the true poor need but can't afford using plastic as payment. Now, all that plastic that we collect is social plastic, a material that we then offer to great organizations around the world that want to use that material as a feedstock in their manufacturing. We opened in Haiti. We went to the Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, now Egypt. This year is Thailand. In partnership with SC Johnson, we're opening Tanzania and Kenya, and then Cameroon. We, of course, have to be around the world because the ocean can't wait. Our system works in a beautiful way where someone like one of our collectors, I communicate Lise all the time, one of our collectors in Haiti, who was left a widow after the 2010 Haitian earthquake. At the time, she had 2 little girls. She has more now. But she makes a very profound living by collecting materials. She'll take her girls to school, and at the end of the day, before she picks the girls up, she'll bring the material back to a Plastic Bank location where she's recognized and identified. The material is viewed for quality and looking for rocks or other debris that may be in there. The mass is weighed, and then a value is substantiated. It's then transferred into an online banking account. The Plastic Bank, we've created a blockchain-based banking application for our collector community. So Lisa, now with that plastic material deposited into her account, keeps her safe from robbery. It has her with an asset. She has a sense of identity. And she and the plastic have a new sense of increased worth. One of the beautiful elements for Lise and our tens of thousands of collectors around the world is that over the course of time, the more that Lise and other members collect and return, based on her frequency and her reliability, based on the quality of the material and the quality of a social circle that is also reliable and dependable, Lise earns a credit rating, a credit score, which ultimately allows an opportunity for Lise to immediately borrow small business loans, or to be able to have at least the opportunity or sense of hope that she can borrow money when she needs. So that's one beautiful model. Chains of stores. Now in Haiti, we have hundreds of schools that accept plastic as payment as well. Oh, in Haiti, one of the poorest countries in the Western Hemisphere, the government can't afford school. Hundreds of thousands of children unable to go to school. It's a user pay system, $20 a month roughly, and children can't go. But now with plastic bank locations at schools, we then teach 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old children to teach their parents about environmental stewardship. We have them teach their parents about using plastic as money, that plastic is of worth. The family then collects the plastic that they encounter, now not burning it or throwing it in the canal or the river. They return it to school, where it's weighed, a value is attributed and deposited into the family's account. The school becomes an amalgamation location where all of the families are bringing in the material. Same process happening at the school, but the school makes a little bit of money as well. Now, the child who's now receiving an education, certainly we would hope, would then believe and know that it was stewardship of the environment that ended poverty. And I think a powerful message for that family. That's another methodology that we have in the world. Another methodology is within congregation. Now, although we're not faith-based, powerfully spiritual as an individual, we've created a program for congregation, one that has had us endorsed by the Vatican, which has had me spend a little bit of time with the Holy Father, the Pope, because we created a program that allows and encourages every parishioner to not just bring offering on their day of worship, but to bring their recycling with them as well. You see, in those two models, both globally exponential. Now, in the church, of course, same thing occurs. The congregation brings in material, it's amalgamated there. The church makes some money. They engage the poor. They engage service over creation. They're stewarding life. And because we know that in every small village around the world, no matter where we are, there's a place of education and a place of faith. You see, we truly need to be globally exponential. We need to reach all of humanity as quickly as possible. And we know that to be one of those ways. So another model for us are stores, like within the Philippines, where a small, tiny little grocery store through the application can accept social plastic by weight as a form of payment. Now that little store now has access to sell more things and engage more of the population and as well participate in stewarding the environment. Very popular models. What I've tried to really establish there is that social plastic, this material that we collect, social plastic, not recycled plastic or virgin plastic, but social plastic, is really nothing else other than money. It really is money for the world. I recognize that there are around 10 trillion kilos of plastic on the earth. Almost all the plastic we've ever produced is still here. A little bit has been used as energy. The rest of it sitting in the environment or in landfill or in the ocean. At roughly $1 a kilo, it's a $10 trillion value if we collect it and only use it once. It's estimated that 500 billion could end all poverty on the world. Perhaps we've been inadvertently depositing the very value that ends all suffering, all malnutrition, all inequality. So all of our collection locations, they gather that material. It's then shipped to a processor locally. We always partner with a local powerful recycler or someone who flakes the material or even bales the material. We work within those countries and those customers, or those suppliers rather, to increase the level of labor standard to ensure that they meet a North American or European standard where all the employees are full-time employed, have safety equipment and the rest. Our staff manage and make sure that children aren't involved in the supply chain, that we're as ethical as possible, that we steward family. All that material is then readied as a raw material for export, whether it be flaked or baled. The material then makes its way back into that circular supply, like within S.C. Johnson or Henkel. Buy a bottle of North American Windex, if you're familiar with that. It's an iconic American brand of window cleaner or scrubbing bubbles, you may know. And that bottle itself, with social plastic, becomes an incredibly powerful tool. So that if you as a consumer were at a shelf and collecting that bottle, using your hands to take it off the shelf, you would in fact be working with the world's poor to remove that plastic from an ocean-bound waterway and simultaneously helping end a little bit of suffering in someone simultaneously. You see, it becomes a beautiful brand activation simultaneously. What I've really tried to exhibit in this model, a base model, there's many other things that we're doing which are just powerful for the world, is that social plastic truly is money. It's truly a form of currency for the planet. Now, what we really are alchemists, true alchemists, taking waste and turning it into worth. It's our sheer existence that does it. I use the example of walking over a field of diamonds. And if you were to walk over a field of diamonds and you could see them glimmering in the sun and you were taken back by it because you thought that, oh my goodness, look what is underneath my feet. But before you bend over to pick it up, you recognize for a moment that there's no bank that you could take any of those diamonds to. There's no store that you could spend any of the diamonds at. There was no one even available to barter the diamonds. Do you pick them up? Probably not, because to you they're worthless. They would sit on the ground like rocks. And in fact, I would argue that the only reason that diamonds have any value, because they are just rocks, is that there's been an exchange system developed and substantiated around the world. They're not scarce, but a high value is attributed to it. And it's no different than plastic. Our sheer presence in communities reveals the inherent value in that petroleum resource. Now diamonds beneath our collectors' feet. So we've had some beautiful success. I'm hoping that many questions will come in this, but we have around 25,000 registered collectors. We're influencing around 100,000 people, collectors' families in the communities. We've increased collector income by 40%. And just a few weeks ago, we announced our first 1 billion bottles collected. It's 1,000 million bottles. And you can imagine the amount of hands and amount of work that went into collecting that volume of material. The supply chain that had to be created, the authenticity behind it, the application, the technology, our ability to engage the world, to engage story, and to give brand. And yet, we're just beginning. When we consider that more than 1 million bottles are produced every minute in the world. That billion bottles accounts to about 16 hours of production. There's still so much to do in the world. Now, inside of all of that, I'd like to allude to a conversation away from sustainability. Now, I know sustainability, and this is Sustainability Week, of course, and I think the intention is powerful and beautiful and authentic. But I think for the rest of the world, it's becoming a little bit thin in the conversation of sustainability. When we look at the Greta generation, we'll lovingly call it, when we look at the tens of millions of students who march the streets in advocacy for the climate, sustainability and doing less damage this year than last year is a very, very thin veil. It's not enough. The next generation is looking for regeneration. And I'd express here that we are powerfully entering a regeneration economy. It's not about how little damage you're doing. It's about how much good you're doing. How powerfully are you regenerating the environment? How are you regenerating society? How will you fix the damage that's been done? You see, that's the true blue ocean strategy. I know there's a pun inside of it. But if you want to compete in the world, if you truly want to do and be focused on what's going to be as opposed to what is, I ask you to move forward, to think about the regenerative model. So much to do in the world. It's been a powerful journey, this plastic bank, and there's been a lot of accomplishment, a lot of accolade, a lot of notoriety with it a little bit. And I'm a bit humbled by it all because that's not my intention. I'm not here for that. My soul and my passion truly is the stewardship of the earth and of humanity. I have a compassionate heart and I want to serve the world. We've done a lot of great things, and I'd like to share just a little bit of a wisdom with all of you. You see, when I started the plastic bank, I didn't think that I could. It was May the 11th, 2013, when I had the idea. It was right before lunch. As an entrepreneur, I've always been seeking solutions. I was attending an event that had some great thinkers there. And that day I had this realization that plastic for money, changing the value, the perceived value of the material, could be powerful for the world. What would it be like if we could use plastic as a currency? I felt inside of me that that could be some small part of the solution. Now, we do truly need an army of people with an army of solutions to tackle this. It's too big for any one person. But I knew that it could have a small impact. I knew that it would, for sure. And I had all the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and I had all of these loud thoughts about what it would be like, and that could be it. And I felt that something could occur. But I then had a second thought. The second thought, loud as well, even louder than the first thought, was, David, are you kidding? You're going to try to create a monetary system in the world. You're going to try to engage the world's most illiterate, violent, diminished people. You're going to try to build a supply chain in those areas. You're going to try to communicate in languages and dialects. You're going to try to engage the poor to collect material and return it to locations, while you simultaneously build out a technology and a platform and the blockchain that you know nothing about. while you kind of build a global brand or try to position it in a way or build a new material type, while then you work on the business itself and create a platform for the world's largest organizations to participate and use the material. And then simultaneously have to steward the initiative. When I first started, people didn't even believe that there was plastic in the ocean. All of those thoughts, it was so loud and fearful. Which is why I love to communicate that the plastic bank was truly born in the third thought that I had. There was two very loud discussions in my head, followed by silence, by a quiet. The plastic bank was born here in the quiet because the quiet voice said, David, you don't at all need to be the person to do all of that. Not at all. But what you get to do is become the person who could. You see, that was the beginning of it all. It was the knowing that the perfect is the enemy of the good enough. And that I could just day by day, moment by moment, slowly choose to become the person who could make change. And I want to communicate it because I know that all of you who are listening, all of you have ideas. All of you have something to contribute into society, into the world. And I as well want to tell you that you do not need to be the person to get it done. But I know inside of you, you all have the ability to slowly become that person. And inside of that is an authentic, powerful leadership journey. What inspires society is not those who have achieved, but to witness the journey of achievement. It makes it real for everybody. So with my time with you, I took you through this journey of the plastic bank, what's been created in the world, what's real, what we've had to overcome. Oh my goodness. The opportunity behind it, of course, is for anyone that may be participating, is to know powerfully that this material, this social plastic, is available as a brand activation, an opportunity for your customers to participate because they as well want to be the people who make change in the world. They as well want to be able to make a decision in their lives that makes a better world for everyone. So I took you through that journey, and I want to assure you as well that you have the power to make that change. And I want to leave you with a quick final message, is that you are all as well consumers. And every time you buy something, you vote. You can't be a part of this conversation, even be in the consideration of marine or environmental debris, and still be buying single-use material, buying things that are overpackaged, not being responsible with your purchases. It's not possible. I'm asking you, from all of the work that I do and the tens of thousands of people that I influence and try to help in my life, what I need all of you to do is to be conscious. And if I could ask any of you to walk into a store and ask that manager for those items in the store that have social plastic in them, that have recycled content in them, that are regenerative by nature, that will make a world of difference to everyone. Have that manager know that there is a demand for a material that will repair the earth. Remember that every time you buy something, you vote. Thank you very much. Thank you.
David, thank you, David, for that riveting and frank assessment of the social and ecological challenges facing Plastic Bank and our planet, and the evolution of that business journey as it is today. One thing that resonated for me particularly was that analogy to turning off the tap. And you know, you mentioned that the very last thing we need to do is clean the ocean. It's about obviously a lot more than that. It's a broader dialogue. David, I just want to kick things off by asking you to take us back to the early days of Plastic Bang. You talked about the inspiration and you know, your collective desire to have an impact. But in those early days of the business, all businesses experience challenges. What were the biggest hurdles when you first set out? And describe, if you can, the impact on the business leading up to today, and obviously in the last 12 months, given the pandemic situation. I know it's a broad brush question.
Well, I'm going to give you my authentic yet esoteric answer. It may not be the answer you're looking for. Many people, when they ask that, they want to know what the challenges is in the day-to-day operations or something like that. But I can tell you that the greatest challenge was self. The greatest challenge to the business was who I was, my ability to believe in it, to continue to execute in it, to continue to use my word to invite people to be in the participation of something great, because it did not exist when I first began the business. We had to struggle, of course. It is always self. It is the authentic answer, because in any business, it is self. Like, there's nothing that we have done that is against the laws of physics. And I am pretty sure that any of the great challenges, any of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, anything to achieve any of those is not against the laws of physics. It's all possible. It's all available. It's those, though, that have the thinking that make it so. The challenges in business were just really things that I had to overcome. They were gifts in my eye. I had to overcome all kinds of other crazier things set aside the business. And of course, I was self-funded in the business. I haven't raised any money to get to where I am. It was all my life savings and sales and working at it and becoming an organization that could attract and keep customers. I had to become that person as well. And I can be authentic in my answer that the biggest struggle was self, as it will be with anyone's business.
As you became to realize that mission, that sense of importance, how did that progress? Obviously, the circular mission of Plastic Bank focuses on creating sustainable recycling systems in coastal areas, which help to tackle poverty while ultimately reintroducing into global manufacturing supply chains what you call social plastic. And ultimately that rests in transferring value to communities as a form of social currency and outcome, as you put it. What was the initial reception to the concept of social plastic, and how have you had to work that up effectively to make it, for want of a better word, sort of digestible, easily digestible to the communities that you're serving?
Well, you know, I think everyone knows the chicken. Don't forget, it's always 2 a.m. for me. There's the expression of chicken or the egg, which comes first. I communicate that we had to give birth to live chickens. There was no chicken or egg. It was live chickens. Give more live chickens, everyone. And we're giving birth to live chickens, so we're giving birth to live chickens. We kind of had to do it simultaneously. So to create social plastic and to create that category, not only did we have to be in the communication of it, be in the communication of brands and being in the sales focused, but we also had to then build out the authenticity simultaneously. So I'm working into communities trying to build a social plastic ecosystem, trying to work within schools and churches and stores and everything else that we had to do, working with local recyclers. We've had people murdered, we've had fires, arsons, we've had all kinds of things that I've had to overcome to get to where we are today. But I knew that it was important and I had to persevere. And I knew that anything that I encountered, I got to become the person that got to overcome that and continue to steward it. So it was a bit of both, really. So we had to be out there selling the story, being in communication while we're building the authenticity. And so while building the authenticity, building the supply chain, and when we're in the supply chain, I'm trying to communicate to the supply chain as well, to all of our collector members, that this is going to be social plastic. This is powerful for the world. This is what it's going to do. We paid premium before we could sell the material. And then I had to communicate to the brands as well that the collector community is involved, and everyone's going to be, their lives are going to be improved, and we're stewarding them, and it's of social nature. So it was a bit of everything. I mean, it's a really complex and ambiguous answer, I think. But I think that what I would really want to communicate is we did it. We just were in action. Like, I really do. I think my favorite quote is, I communicated, the perfect is the enemy of the good enough. And how many amazing ideas, how many world-changing ideas, how many life-changing ideas have died on the vine because the person who had the idea was afraid to make a mistake? How many ideas maybe did you have that you didn't think you were good enough for? It's really the message I want to share with everyone here, because you don't need to be that person. I remind you, you only need to slowly become it. It could be a 10-year journey, but you can realize it. And then at minimum, you realize your own personal journey of becoming the person who made change, whatever it was. My answers into the business are really of self. I attest to that. The journey of all of it has been a self journey. It's remarkable. The business shows up. The more that I show up, the more that I show up consciously, the more that I show up without story, operating from the nothingness, from not what I think can be done, or the stories that were told to me, or thinking that I might fail, or what might someone think if it doesn't work out. Once I got out of those thoughts, I came into this whole, the infinite. I came into a place of everything being possible. And I try to execute from there. I'm not sure if that's the answer you were looking for, but final answer. not even calling a friend.
No, very much so, David. And, I think certainly what is important here is to understand that social transfer of value is certainly, for me, what I've heard you speak about is not only to those collection communities, but intrinsic to the way the plastic itself is processed, sorted before it re-enters the supply chain.
Sure.
And moves through the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, you obviously work with a number of companies. In your view, are brands, from multinationals to small, medium enterprises, are they doing enough to invest in
No.
the ultimately lucrative value of social plastic? Is that something that...
Are they doing that for social plastic? They're starting, they're very slow. And I think that everyone, wow. Sometimes I get caught and I say, well, I should watch my answer, but I don't want to. I just want to be authentic. Listen, how long have we been talking about what's happening in the ocean? Like, every minute a garbage truck of plastic is entering the ocean. I mean, there are organizations that, the biggest FMCGs in the world make multiple billions in profit every year, billions and billions in profit every year. And they're investing almost none of it in solution. There's so much more that could be done. And there's no time. The ocean can't wait. People are dying from preventable disease. It's ridiculous. Everyone needs to be doing more.
What, in your mind, David, are the most effective interventions we as a society need to make to reduce the volume?
We have to stop using virgin plastic. Forgive me, but what I want to talk about here is that, there's 10 trillion kilos of plastic on the earth. We don't need to make any more. The material really is almost infinitely recyclable. Even if it begins to degrade, you put a little bit of new material in it, so we'll never get to zero, but we don't need to make more. What are we doing? We have to get away from this anticipation that everyone wants packaging that looks perfect and it's like blemish free. That's not the case anymore. Look at the proliferation of used clothing stores. Oh my goodness, I could barely get my 15-year-old into a new clothing store. That'd be like maybe some shoes, but her and her friends, they go to consignment shops and use clothes. That's where it's going. And we look at packages that are truly looking like they are recycled, or recyclable content that's occurring. We have to get away from virgin plastic. That has to occur in that conversation as well. I want to communicate that even if we came up with an alternative to plastic, let's say there was, and I know that you're going to be having a panel around this, I'll just pose my opinion, and it's just my opinion. I'm not a scientist. I'm not, just my thoughts. If we come up with an alternative to plastic that has all the, uses or material specifications, everything else that you need in that new material, and we comprehensively devalue the 10 trillion kilos of plastic on the earth, will exacerbate the problem. I believe we're actually at a precipice. We're at a danger of replacing plastic. I don't think we can do that. What we need to do is increase the value of the material. We need to increase the value. We need to find more ways for more people to want to return the material. So I ask, if every piece of packaging or every bottle that you saw was £5, €5, $5, how many would we see in the environment? Any? None. I wouldn't be throwing myself, oh, it's $5, it's $5, it's €5, £5. I wouldn't be throwing any away. Would we see any in the ocean? No. Did we see any in the waste bin? No. If it was $5, we'd see none anywhere, no package, no bottle. It goes to substantiate that it's not the plastic, it's us. It's us that view the material as being worthless when it's not. We need to increase the value of the material to make it collectible, to make the recycling ecosystems profitable. Either taxation against virgin or taxation against not using recycled content. I don't care which way you want to do it. We need to increase the value of the material, that's it. And give consistency into the hands of the collector communities around the world. That's what we need to be doing.
David, I think one of the other challenges that we're facing as well is, as well as the value question, it's also the question of infrastructure. Sure. And the lack of infrastructure, whether it's downtown or at an airport, with a couple Sure. of questions, a couple of exceptions, some airports are starting to look at this, is the infrastructure to enable the customer, the consumer, the passenger to recycle on the spot. How many times have you gone, as anybody watching, gone down to the local coffee shop, taken a coffee where it's served in a recyclable or compostable or biodegradable cup and lid, but then there's no communication from the vendor or on packaging supplier either on how to dispose of that, where to dispose of it, and councils and airports currently, for the most part, are not providing those facilities either for recycling or composting. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Are you seeing any exceptions anywhere?
I think it depends on where you go and what you see. Now, of course, I'm looking for solutions, so I see solutions. Now, as well, in all of that, I have to as well be in the admiration of people using recyclable, cups and recyclable lids and doing their part as well, because things do have to begin. And back to the saying, best is the enemy of the good enough. Like if people won't start, like in that same dialogue, like what I witnessed there is a beginning of something. That's an origination of something. This communication, your question, is an origination of something. Perhaps there's airport authorities who are listening. This is the origination of a question. This is a way so that you understand it's not against the laws of physics, and you can slowly then add that into that ecosystem. Of course, it all has to occur. Do I see it beginning? Yes. Now I live in Canada. I live in the west coast of Canada. We're incredibly environmentally sensitive. I don't think I have any garbage. I've got some film that I have to take to a different depot, but all of our organics, everything here is recycled, everything. So we have the capacity here where I am, at least, and more of it needs to happen, of course. I travel around the world and I'm dismayed by the lack of opportunity. Now that's also, a condition of business and profitability and many other things. So it's no simple answer. I don't have one for you, Michael. I can only communicate that I see it beginning, and I see in some areas better than others. And yet I know that a population is asking for that. And this next generation is going to be demanding it. And they're not going to fly with you or spend money with you unless you are. Short answer.
You mentioned that. Thanks for that. You mentioned we'll be looking at alternatives to single-use plastics in one of the sessions this week. And you talk about turning off the tap. But manufacturers do need viable alternatives that are not obviously going to be equally harmful as virgin plastics to the environment.
They do.
So,
Yeah.
you mentioned the alternatives. What is your opinion on the various alternatives to single-use plastics, specifically that we're seeing, from oxydegradables, oxybiodegradables, compostables, and so on?
So I'm sorry, ask the question again, Michael. So what do I see as alternatives?
Yeah, what is your opinion on the alternatives?
Oh yeah, no, I love alternatives for single use, but it's super powerful. Like, I mean, just think of the journey of a plastic spoon, for Pete's sakes. Think of what's had to occur for a plastic spoon. Think of, someone had to go and mine them. There was a well that had to be drilled. I mean, they had to mine the oil, the crude. They had to take that had to go into some processing facility, some refinery, giant refinery had to be shipped there. It had to be refined. They had to take the refinery, and then that refined oil had to then go to a facility that was turning that into plastic, making some nurdle. So that was shipped, and then from that nurdle, it was shipped to someone who makes spoons. That they took all that plastic, they pressed spoons out of that plastic. That plastic then went into a box and then into a case, and then that case went into a truck, and it had to be shipped maybe, and then it went into a boat, some freighter, and the freighter had to go around the world, and then it was picked up by another truck on the other end, and then went to a store where you pick it up, or you then use a spoon for a second to stir a coffee and you dispose of it. Just think of the enormity of resources and waste that's involved there. So we have to have alternatives to that. And it's an army of people with an army of solutions. And I see, I see alternatives. And my favorites, I guess, biogas. I love anything made from a waste material. I love anything made that's regenerative. I love regenerative farming practices that are sequestering carbon. I like materials made from that. I look for anything that is actually doing good in the world. I like the action of things. I think that's what I've got. Yeah.
Well, to pick up on that, you mentioned that the blue ocean strategy and how good we as individuals and as companies can be. How can companies watching here today really step up then to get involved? Some are airports, airlines, cruise companies. You've got duty-free travel retail shop concession owners.
Oh, there's so much. Oh my goodness.
You've got many brand owners. How can the industry stakeholders get involved, and what are the various forms of partnership? And I say overtly, please do talk about how they can get involved with the
Thank you.
Well,
one other model that I didn't talk about was our social impact programming. So we have, like the Swiss bank Lombard Odier, they're a B Corp as well, and they want to make a powerful difference in the world, and they're focused on the ocean as well, but they're bankers. They don't use the plastic. Now, what they've done is they've created a few funds, and the funds sold out powerfully because their social impact opportunity. And a percentage of their management fee, they fund through us. That creates bursaries for children or scholarships. It's created all kinds of other opportunities. It's created recyclers around the world, where the bursaries were earned by collecting and returning material. We're focused on girls and putting more girls into school. So they were able to have a social impact opportunity with us. So even if you can't use the material, there are ways for people to participate in making change. Now, through the blockchain, we were able to substantiate exactly where every dollar goes, what communities it went to, what occurred around the world. So the blockchain not only is creating a banking application for lease and for our other collectors around the world, but it creates visibility, traceability, authenticity, so that every single company or consumer can go in and look and say, this is the impact that occurred. So certainly that's one program. And then using the material powerful, and anyone here that has some opportunity to understand that, oh, there's something inside of that. Of course, we want to have a beautiful, powerful brand activation. Use Procter & Gamble and Gillette that become powerful customers. They created a whole new shaving line called Planet Kind. The handle is made out of recycled material. The package came out of recycled material, and every single razor that they sell extracts 10 bottles of ocean-bound material with us as well. So that's a powerful brand activation. They're doing amazingly well with it. A brand new product. It's just a market and it's doing very, very well. So customers have the ability to have an engagement between social plastic and impact. There's all kinds of ways for people to be involved. And I invite you, if you're watching and you'd like to participate, I'm David at plasticbank.com. That's very easy. Go to plasticbank.com and then register as well, or there's some forms there, an inquiry. My team can help you from there as well. And if you are listening here, you have the ability, and we don't need to have all of the answers, but what you do is you have the ability to begin something, because all great things start. And even if it's something that can't work in your business currently, it may in the future. You may know others that need social plastic as well. But I can't help but think that you all know someone in your life that would benefit from it, that is looking for that change, that truly is looking to participate in fixing the world. Everyone should have that opportunity to participate. That's our goal. So a variety of ways to participate. Remember the social plastic itself. There's the impact programming. And then there's some ecosystems like Henkel powerfully launched us into Egypt. They took a relationship with us that is going to build 400 collection locations and bring in thousands and thousands of tons of material, and they launched that. So every location in Egypt, which is a big market for them, is also branded with Henkel, and it engages the local consumer as well. One of the opportunities with Henkel, what we'd like to see happen is that every bottle certainly could be a lottery ticket as well. So if you buy a bottle of Persil, we'll say, or Nature Box, you'd have the ability to win a trip into an ecosystem to go and volunteer. You'd have the ability to win creating a recycler around the world. You'd have the win to give, you'd have the ability to have the win to put children in school as a result of them returning, or the families returning material. There's 100 ways to engage with us. We truly are evolving to be a branding and engagement company more than anything else that includes all of the authenticity and the impact. I didn't think we should be. I didn't think we would need to be, but it turns out that's what we need to do.
There are lots of comments coming in, and my own opinion is it's a really inspiring talk, and that's been expressed by a number of people in the questions coming in. And one really interesting question come in from somebody anonymously asked is, do you have any tips on how to communicate with consumers and make sure they understand what businesses are doing to reduce their impact on the environment via social media, on product packaging, or on advertising material? Because just like the infrastructure issue, one of the biggest challenges is the fact that consumers don't know what to do with something that says recycled on there. Should it be compostable? If so, where should I compost it? If it's biodegradable, which bin do I put it in? And that's a huge challenge today.
Well, there was a lot in that question. There was a lot in that question. My short answer is nope, don't have any ideas. But I'm struck with, so what occurred for me in that question is like, what do you tell people? Well, don't tell people, show people, do it, just be it, right? I love the expression that I can't hear what you say because what you do screams so loudly. Well, it's true. Like, it's one thing to say, oh, please recycle this package, but it's another thing to come up with a recyclable content. It's another thing to have something that is absolutely easily recyclable. This extended producer responsibility, I believe in that. We have to. Look what's occurring with sachet waste in Southeast Asia or in Africa as well. These tiny little individual service sachets, 2 different types of plastic sandwiching a piece of aluminum. Well, it's not recyclable. It's not going to be recycled. It's applied. Billions and billions of them are being produced. It's such a catastrophe. And it is that type of material for the print quality. It's 2 different plastics and then the aluminum so that you can print on it, so you can have your branding on it. And no one's willing to change that because it may interfere with shareholder return. And billions are being produced. Utterly non-recyclable. Shame.
But then
the consumer do.
But then, you talk about shareholder return. The consumers will walk with their conscience, with their increasingly green conscience, and the investors will be and are. So we hear from our partners at KPMG, who we often do webinars with. There are more and more financial institutions actually
Absolutely.
applying sustainable criteria
Yes.
for companies seeking finance. So it is shifting that way, thankfully.
It's shifting. It's begun. It's what excites me every day is that we're doing powerfully, doing well now with some of the world's attention with more and more organizations around the world that want to participate. And more importantly, what I'm inspired by are the countless people that have ideas that want to participate, that are starting new businesses. Because I don't think that the big players of the world need to be afraid of their competitor. They need to be afraid of the two guys in the garage that are coming up with some kick-ass idea that's going to take their market away because they had hubris, because they thought that they were ahead of the game and untouchable.
There's an interesting question come here just on that. On the skeptics. Do you come into regular contact with people who don't believe there is any damage being done to the ocean, or who place little emphasis on sustainability in their daily lives? And what's your approach when communicating with these people? Patience.
It's a high five to the face with a chair. I'm joking. I don't, not anymore. I did it first, and I don't know why middle North America, without naming a country, have been the strongest deniers. I mean, Europe is leading the way. The Germans are leading the way. I think Europeans have a broader perspective. They're better traveled. They're more worldly. They see things, and there's no one to convince against their will that we have encountered in Europe by any means. Have we encountered no end of purchasers who don't think it's going to work? Yeah. Have I encountered no end of supply chain professionals who think it's against the laws of physics? For sure. Yeah. Have I encountered all kinds of brand managers that just didn't want to take the risk? Yeah. And I think that that's more of the communication, is that what we encounter are those people who are afraid to make a mistake. And that's the death of us. To sit back and do nothing. Or what we need are people who are risk takers, to go and try to figure it out, to do what you can for humanity, for the world, for everybody, for everything alive. There's been, scientists report that there's been around 10 billion species on the planet. 10 billion species. Humans are just one of 10 billion species. But what I'm struck by is that humans have been the only species to have the ability to care for all others. The only species to have ever existed on the planet that could actually love and steward and care for all others, but yet we don't. Yeah, there's a great responsibility in being a human.
David, on that note, educating people on plastic pollution and the problem that represents an important part of the work you do. You spoke about it. You mentioned the Greta Thunberg generation in your address.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how big an impact have the conversations with younger people been in shaping your individual approach and now the Plastic Bank to move towards this regeneration philosophy, if you will? How big a part have they played and continue to play?
Yeah, I have my children. I'll share my favorite quote with you, and then I'll get back to it. It strikes me. I want to share it with everyone if I have a chance. And it reads, "We have the opportunity to choose who our children's parents will be. We have the opportunity to choose who our children's parents will be." Ooh, okay. I choose environmentalist. I choose someone who's going to steward the earth. I choose someone who's going to leave the earth in a better condition for them as they come into their own individuality. I choose someone compassionate. I choose someone that's going to take risks for others. I choose someone extremely funny. I choose all kinds of beautiful things. Does it have to be for all of society, for all children? No, I've got my own that I get to look at and go, oh, okay, I got it. I get my role. I know what I'm here to do, and I know that it's beyond me. It's not for me. It's for others. And yes, we have no end of schools and people, and like, I don't know, countless people every day trying to reach out with that want to communicate, that are hopeful, that are thankful for what we do. There's a wave of change occurring.
David, obviously you touched on earlier where Plastic Bank currently operates, Haiti, Brazil, Indonesia, the Philippines, Egypt, and obviously you've got some new projects coming up this year, and we'll talk about those a bit later. Big picture question, where Plastic Bank has entered those countries, was there enough early years education taking place on the importance of reducing the scourge of plastic waste?
Where we operate?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Of course not. I mean, when people have never left their village, like, if I haven't said this before, but a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Right? So like, we can't go into a community and tell the poor who don't have food, that have no ability to send their children to school, that are sick. I mean, do you know how many children die from fever? Like, just from fever, they have no acetaminophen. There's no way to reduce a fever, and children die. It's ridiculous. We're going to go and tell them that they should be recycling? Come on. That's why we're successful, is because we don't tell anyone to do anything. We just give them a powerful new way of being, a way of thinking, and they can go, oh my goodness, those are diamonds beneath my feet. And now that's why we had insurance. That's why we had health insurance. We had health access using plastic. Many of our collectors didn't even know it was available, like within the Philippines, although the government provides it. The poor, or they're illiterate, they don't know. So we enroll them into social programming. And then we also have insurance products for them, which is powerful too. For 80 cents a month, a mother has the ability to name herself as a beneficiary on her husband's policy. So if something happens to him where he dies, she's not destitute. It's 80 cents a month. That's our cost. It's so easy to collect that much material. It doesn't take you 20 minutes to go and collect that much material. You will collect that material. You just do that once a month. You see, we need to engage every single household, not just, these collectors, but our whole endeavor is to engage every single home. So health and things like that. You see, that's something that's in it for them. I don't have to teach them to recycle. What I get to do is say, hey, your life is safe. You have mastery over your own life. There's hope for you. Let me rephrase that. You will find hope in your own life. That's why the education, that's why insurance, that's even why Wi-Fi, so that people can be receive some knowledge. That's why we, in Haiti, we create literacy programs so that our collector communities can learn how to read and write. It's just like so much work to do. But they recognize that they get all of that by collecting and returning material, and then they learn to recycle. Then it's important for them. But I don't have to convince anyone. It's a bit rude, really, to, not you, but it's rude to be in the consideration, because I get the question all the time, like, why don't you just tell those people to recycle? Don't they know? Well, no, they don't. They do not know. They don't know. Nor do they care if your beach is a mess when they're starving, and you don't care that they're starving, but yet you care that your beach is a mess, right? Leave it up to you. We need a bigger picture. People need to be in the consideration of other, but we're in this place of self, this unconscious self, this marketing message that you're not good enough yet, people might look at you differently, that your teeth aren't white enough, that all of those things, we've gotten away from thinking of others. We're just so concerned about ourselves. Lots of work to do.
And this year you're planning to expand to Cameroon and Thailand, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Cameroon, super excited by Cameroon, super excited by Thailand, all kinds of things to do, all kinds of language translations. We haven't done Thai yet, so we'll get that. But Cameroon, oh my goodness, all of West Africa, lots there. We're trying to focus on the contributing rivers as the Niger. Nigeria's a bit more violent. So we're going to go to Cameroon first and get a foothold in Cameroon, get our partnerships with our, we have a beautiful, powerful, beautiful recycling partner there, actually funded by the Belgians, and high quality labor standard, everything else, just really want to impact society there. And then we're hoping to expand with them into Nigeria as well. So that's going to be a bit of a nut to tackle. But the Niger River is one of the top 10 contributing rivers to marine debris in the world. That's why Egypt, because Cairo, the Nile is one of the top 10 contributing rivers as well. Lots of work to do. Lots of work to do. So that Cameroon, Tanzania and Kenya, so one of the other ways people can partner with us, like SC Johnson as well, like we mentioned Henkel with Egypt. It's SC Johnson is what's leading us into East Africa. So there's all kinds of ways to partner. Like if you want to powerfully create change in the world and have your brand associated with it, have us come into a country of your choice and have us create that for you. And then you'd always have that legacy that your brand changed society. We truly are an economic development opportunity. Like when we go into a country, it's, within the diplomatic corps and within government, that's the way we would represent ourselves as an economic development opportunity, where we come in and we do economic development by using the materials and the resources that are already on the ground. Now, we also collect more than just plastic. We are paper and aluminum and everything else as well. So there's a lot of value that then is shared within society.
David, education is obviously it's a fundamental part of turning off the tap process and raising awareness in developing countries, not just about turning off the tap, but also the business opportunities with recycling. I love the story about congregations bringing plastic for recycling to the church as well as their offerings. Wonderful. Yeah. How do you? That's in Brazil, I think you mentioned.
We started that in Brazil, yeah, but certainly, and I had the idea in Brazil and in Sao Paulo, and then certainly Colombia, the rest of South America, certainly Catholic, which is where that, within Catholicism, there's actually a process where, there's a hierarchy, there's a boss, the Pope. Oh, the boss has a boss, I guess, but there's a way to manage it. And within the blockchain as well, we have the ability to gamify. So you can have incentives from one congregation to the other, and who's doing better than other congregations. And so we do that same gamification and incentivification with our collector communities as well. So how do we game them? How do we make it more fun for people to participate?
I think so through the gamification aspects of the app. How else do you monitor the impact of the work with local communities? When educating children on plastic pollution, and how important do you see this as part of the solution?
Yeah, education is just such a critical component. Oh my goodness, we haven't. When you have a child that becomes fervent, and no, you will not throw, mom and dad, you will not throw that away. That's what they taught us at school, and that's what's happening. And the child learns environmental stewardship, and the family then participates. It's just a beautiful thing. So, for us, we ultimately see volumes of material. There's all kinds of other studies. There's a million things we could do and go try to look at impact and look for some other, crazy NGO type stuff, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after just collecting volumes of material and putting money in the hands of the poor. Did more money make their way into our collector community? Did they make more money? Did they earn more? Did they increase their volumes of material? How much more material did we extract? For me, that's good enough. But yes, we can also measure how many more children went to school. That's an easy one as well. We know how many bursaries were received. We know what scholarships were awarded. There's all kinds of other impact data. It's so data rich, it's crazy. And for me, I'm more inspired by the stories that we get. Like, I'm inspired by meeting one of our collectors that was, told me that he didn't have to go to a loan shark when his baby was due, because he was able to collect enough material and he was able to support he and his wife, so that the baby wasn't born already in debt. That was a powerful story for me. Or, I communicate Jean in Haiti. This is one of my most powerful first experiences where, we also have a cooperative model. So there's other things we do, but co-ops where we take individual collectors, we bring them together under a set of bylaws, and, they have mass volumes of material. They're really great. But Jean was the president of the co-op in Haiti, the very first one. And talking to Jean, I said, like, well, Jean, how's the program working? What's going on with you? And he had 2 little girls with him, like maybe 5, 6. He's like, oh, David, I could just see this look in his face. And it's kind of like a ghost leaves him when he says, well, David, I can now see my girls going to university. Well, for me, it was profound, because he was living in tarps in a lot that was a building that had fallen down during an earthquake. He had 2 little girls. They were hungry the day before, but now he himself could see a future. He could see his children going to university. He could see a decade now into the future. He wasn't thinking that they're not going to have enough food for today. That's the impact for me. I like to communicate that I believe that what I witnessed was the end of Jean's poverty that day. But I've come to more powerfully recognize that I witnessed the end of my poverty that day. It truly was the day that I gave myself. I gave myself into the humanity. I gave myself into service. I gave myself into stewardship. That's what I needed less. I think it's what we truly need. What I need is to want less. If there's anything I need, is to want less, to serve more, to do more. Yeah.
It's amazing. We're seeing a lot of individual initiatives and company initiatives in our industry to do more on this. Yeah. So it's encouraging to see. However, having said that, COVID came, and it's obviously obliterated many businesses, NGO businesses, social enterprises, especially in developing countries. I know of several NGOs in Cambodia who have folded because their key customers were tourists buying recycled goods. And it's a real shame to see these NGO social enterprises going out of business. How has COVID impacted your operations, both in countries in the developing economies where you have collection operations, but also with the partnership development side?
For us, it just on the serendipity of life, I mean, we did really well. We flourished with it. We grew 300% the last year. Maybe we'd have done more. I don't know, but it worked out well. Our customers benefited from selling detergents and sanitizers, so that seemed to work out very, very well. We got to pivot. We were able to petition local governments in Indonesia and the Philippines to declare recycling an essential service. So it had been shut down for about a week, but we worked with our partner as well. We worked to declare it, because I've got so many other stories of people through COVID that were able to find a plastic bank. I think we increased our collector community by the thousands because people had no other sources of income, but they found it with us, and because we pay a premium. So we remove all the middlemen so that we put all the money into the hands of the collectors so they can actually look at it like $5. And so they were able to buy rice immediately and other things. I have so many just powerful, beautiful stories around it. And I'm just rambling on because I forgot what the question was.
It's about COVID impact.
COVID impact. COVID's been COVID. So yeah, we created that's where we immediacy of loan, we kind of fast tracked that as well, so that our collector communities could immediately apply for small loans, and so that they would not go hungry. And the company coalesced powerfully, beautifully. We, transitioned as we should be into a more of a remote workforce as kind of we are. So COVID was a beautiful impact for us, and I know that it hasn't for a lot of people, and I know that there's a lot of people who have suffered. There's a lot of people who have died. My mother-in-law was a month in ICU. I have friends that lost both of their parents, and I know that in that what's available for me is to make and ensure that I create something powerful from this, and that we look for the gift out of COVID. And then I know that out of all of the suffering, that it's my responsibility, and I would say all of our responsibility, to look for what is good and to bring that good further to life. That's all that there is to do. I can't deny it. I can't change it. Can't do anything about what's unfolding. But what I can do something about is to look for the good and to bring it to life.
We're coming to an end of the session, so we're going to have to wrap up. But just one final question specific to our sector. We heard from Harding, which is the retail partner for Virgin Voyages, in a session recently. And when they launch their cruise ships in the near future, we hope, they're going to have a much stronger emphasis, or a very strong emphasis than most retailers currently, on sustainable products and brands, with I think around 25% of the retail offer is going to be from B Corp brands, environmentally friendly products, NGOs, social enterprises. Do you see a potential for goods made from social plastic in the travel retail space? And are you already working with any?
Of course. No, all kinds. No, there's all kinds of room. It's happening. It's unfolding all the time. So we see it. It's not fast enough. That's my communication is like, wow, like I've been doing this for eight years or so. We knew what the problem was a decade ago, but yet almost not. But now it's coming. We see it emerging now. I'll finish with this. Out of all the speaking I've done around the world, many packaging and branding and all kinds of other speeches or talks, I would ask the audience why you're here, what's going on. And in the past, people would say, oh, consumers are asking for it. What we're getting today is that they're having trouble hiring staff. So it's not even about the consumer. They're having trouble engaging a quality workforce. The next generation, the Greta generation, is not going to work for you unless you've got a social purpose. Unless you're regenerating the earth, you're not going to find the brightest and the best. It's not just the consumer, it's your business that's at stake if you don't. It's coming slowly as the next generation is, but be assured that they are. And know that nothing that you need to do is against the laws of physics, and you can slowly, slowly become the organization as well that can make the change in the world. Because you're choosing who you need to be for you and for your children.
As Gandhi said, be the change.
Be the change.
Thank you very much, David. Luke, I'll let you make some final remarks before I close.
That was it. Oh, you're asking Luke? Okay, well, I got out of that.
Well, what a point to end on, David. Thank you so much. It's been a fascinating dialogue with a number of important takeaways for contemplation this week as we move into the following days. Look, thanks for giving up some of your precious time to speak to travel retail sustainability.
Please find me on LinkedIn. That would be amazing. Send me a message if you were listening, and please connect with me if you could. I would love that and honor that, and that would give me the fuel. It's difficult speaking to a little green dot on my computer. I'm a human with lots of love in my heart, and I really thrive from human interaction. So I'm lonely. Everyone send me messages.
Sure. You're going to have a way of people contacting you, David.
I hope so.
We're just about out of time now, as Michael mentioned, but all that remains is to thank you once again, David, for your time. Thank you to my co-moderator, Michael Barrett, and of course, a special mention and thank you again to all our premium partners and the session sponsors for this event, this session rather, and obviously making Travel Retail Sustainability Week happen. We've got a busy schedule today, as Michael pointed out in his opening remarks. The first sustainability pitch session taking place at 11:30 a.m. British summertime. Lego, Altia, Nestle, and Silent Pool Gin will be putting their sustainable initiatives to an expert judging panel. That's a not to be missed session. We urge you all to join us for that. And then at 2:00 p.m. British Summer Time, the beauty category will take centre stage in the first of our sustainability panel discussions. Again, another superb session and really stellar lineup. So we look forward to welcoming you back for the sustainability pitch and the beauty sessions. For now, please take full advantage of the Travel Retail Sustainability Week networking platform. Connect, discuss, keep the conversation going. Thank you once again, David. Thank you, Michael. Stay safe, stay well.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Luke, and thanks, David. It was immensely interesting and inspiring. Do get in touch with David and his team to find out more how you can get involved. The Plastic Bank has a sustainable networking hub, so you can liaise with the team throughout the event. Thanks to you for watching, and of course to our session sponsors, Arianta International, Brown Forman, Coty, and Mondelez International. The session will be available through video on demand after this session ends, shortly after. So if you want to watch it again or share it with colleagues who may have missed it. Do post on social media using the hashtag Travel Retail Sustainability Week and hashtag TR Business, so we can share your posts as well and keep the sustainability message spreading. Thanks to you all, and see you a little later.
And
Bye
just a quick final one, to make sure you tag TR Sustainability Week in all your social media posts, and indeed via LinkedIn at TR Business as well, to keep those conversations going. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.